Hello again, 240. In this video, I will go over a topic from Chapter 10, Television Changes the Image of American Sports. And this topic is Super Sunday and Monday Night. When Pete Rozelle's greatly expanded 26-team empire now tucked under one tent, it was only natural that a final championship playoff game be held between the American and National Football Leagues, changed to conferences in 1970. Although the owners wanted to call it the World Championship game, Rozelle opted for a more regal title of Super Bowl. In 1971, with the fifth Super Bowl approaching, Rozelle gave the upcoming Dallas-Baltimore game a classic touch by designating it with a distinctive Roman numeral, Super Bowl V or 5. And they've been doing it ever since, and we're up to L111 now, I believe, this coming season. What was retroactively dubbed Super Bowl I was played in spacious 100,000-seat Los Angeles Coliseum on January 15, 1967, and just 35,000 fans paid the top ticket price of $12. My, how things have changed. To watch Coach Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers trample the Kansas City Chiefs 35-10. The first game was telecast by both NBC and CBS, which sold advertising at $35,000 per 30 seconds. Thereafter, the two networks alternated through 1984 as part of an ongoing contract with the league, at which point ABC joined in the fun. The Super Bowl became the most watched event on the American sports calendar, eclipsing the World Series, Kentucky Derby, Indianapolis 500 race, and New Year's Day college bowl games. It was Super Bowl III that thrust the game into the forefront of American sports. Las Vegas bookmakers made the Baltimore Colts of the older league a prohibitive 17-point favorite over the upstart New York Jets, led by quarterback Broadway Joe Willie Namath, who had become a much-publicized New York bachelor. A few days before the January 12, 1969 game, Namath brashly guaranteed a Jets victory. Much to the surprise of football experts, he delivered in dramatic fashion by engineering a 16-7 victory. He completed 17 passes for 208 yards and directed a powerful running game featuring backs Emerson Boozer and Matt Snell, while the Jets' defense, featuring defensive end Jerry Philbin from the University of Buffalo, stifled the Colts' offense. Even Pete Rozelle, the master of public relations, could not have written a better script. And Namath went on to a Hall of Fame career playing on one leg. Thereafter, the Super Bowl became a major event, complete with overblown media coverage that generated a commercial frenzy. Super Bowl Sunday was not merely another day to watch a football game on television, but became an informal national holiday. Each year it seemed to grow ever more extravagant, ever more outrageous. Several thousand media personnel assembled at the game site a week before kickoff to fill the airwaves and newsprint with an avalanche of mostly trivial stories. Fortune 500 companies held lavish parties for important guests in which they strived to outdo the others with their excess. Ticket prices accelerated each year, reaching a face value of $500 in 2004, but scalpers could usually sell the tickets for the upwards of 4 times their face value. 6 months before Super Bowl 10 before 50 plus 5 is 45 was held in Dallas in 2011, brokers offered a price range for tickets that began at $1,500 for a seat high above the end zones and climbed to above $7,500 for a prime location. Each year the game generated wagers, legal and otherwise, that were estimated to total several $billion. Across the country, private parties were planned. Newspapers even printed suggestions for Super Bowl buffet menus for struggling hosts, and vast amounts of alcohol and food were consumed. Major corporations eagerly lined up to buy advertising. By 1980, the cost of commercials had reached $250,000 per 30 seconds. In 2005, the hat-minute rate had spiraled to the astronomical level of $2.5 million. And in 2011, despite a severe recession that was in its third year of wreaking economic havoc, advertisers paid $2.8 million for a 30-second access to the nation's largest television audience. Agencies that designed advertisements largely for beer, technology, automobile, and soft drink companies, were caught up in an informal contest for the most creative advertisement, which became part of the post-game media dissection. The importance of the Super Bowl to the television industry was driven home when Pete Rozelle admitted ABC to the network rotation for the 1985 game in return for an $18 million admission fee. Wow. It was inevitable that two creative men such as Pete Rozelle and Roone Arledge would find a way to combine their talents. For several years, Rozelle had chafed under the limitations that confined NFL games to Sunday afternoons. He dreamed of putting his product on prime time. But both CBS and NBC continue to view sports with indifference. All three networks viewed Saturday nights as sacrosanct for their top-rated programs, and Fridays were considered unavailable because that evening was traditionally reserved for Friday Night Lights high school football, except for the tradition of the Detroit Lions Thanksgiving Day game, which goes back to the 1930s. Midweek seemed inappropriate. What about Monday night? Rozelle was rebuffed by CBS for fear of losing women viewers who flocked to the network's popular Monday primetime feature movie. NBC expressed interest but backed off when Johnny Carson balked at pushing his highly rated Tonight Show back from its regular 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slot, 8:30 on the West Coast. That left ABC, which after some hesitation and much trepidation decided to take the risk. Skeptics predicted a ratings disaster. Football was, after all, a weekend event, but when Monday Night Football, MNF, made its appearance in September of 1970, the all-important Nielsen ratings went through the roof. Under Roone Arledge's magic touch, Monday Night Football became a national institution and one of the most profitable and longest-running programs in the history of television. Part of the magic was that Arledge pulled out all the stops by utilizing modern television gadgetry, instant replays, isolation shots of individual players, fancy graphics, and other special effects dazzled viewers. Cameras honed in on outrageously costumed fans, dressed like dogs in Cleveland, a dog pound in the end zone, and hogs in Washington, which was the nickname of the offensive line of the Redskins in the 80s and early 90s. And homemade signs were draped around the stadium, carrying clever messages that often incorporated the letters ABC, free advertising for the network. But the real show was in the broadcast booth. Instead of the traditional two-man broadcasting team, Arledge decided to put 3 men in the booth, including 2 color commentators who brought contrasting styles and personalities. One was Don Meredith, a former quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Possessed of a healthy skepticism about the essential importance of the game in which he had been a star, Meredith offered up many an irreverent comment. On those occasions when he arrived in the broadcast booth, well fortified from a visit to the hotel bar, he might even break into an off-key country and western song. "Turn out the lights, the party's over," he would say when he felt that contest was over. He left the show in '74 to work for NBC with Curt Gowdy, but he returned for another 7 years in 1977. Arledge defied many skeptics by placing alongside Meredith the outspoken and contentious Howard Cosell. After graduating from law school in 1940 and completing military service, Cosell practiced law for several years in New York City, and he built a practice that included several professional athletes as clients. He began dabbling in sports radio and eventually closed his law office in 1956 when he joined ABC as a radio sports commentator. By 1960, he had emerged as a skilled boxing commentator for ABC's televised fights, but excelled in covering other sports as well, like baseball. Cosell became famous for his lucid, erudite, and penetrating commentaries, which he did extemporaneously, thanks to his amazing facility for accurately recalling sports trivia. The man had a photographic memory. He could memorize the roster of a team looking at it once. He had long been critical of fawning sports announcers who seldom had anything negative to report about any sports figure. Possessed of a massive ego, Cosell did not hesitate to make critical comments about a particular player's weaknesses or a coach's limitations as if he were expounding upon new truths soon to be etched in stone. His Brooklyn accent and his Jewish ethnicity and palpable arrogance grated upon Middle America. Well before his arrival on Monday Night Football, he had established his reputation for telling it like it is. That is, providing blunt commentary that set him apart from other mainline sports announcers. In the initial Monday night game, Cosell sparked a flurry of angry demands that he be removed from the broadcasting team when he criticized Joe Namath for forcing a pass into heavy coverage, which led to an untimely interception. The same fan response occurred when Cosell said that star Cleveland running back Leroy Kelly was not having a compelling game. Fans were not used to such mildly critical appraisals of their favorite star players. Meredith and Cosell began their stint on Monday Night Football by joking with each other, but soon were engaged in a game of one-upmanship. As the years rolled by, the banter increasingly became more pointed and often was more entertaining than the game on the field. Their relationship, rocky from the start and fired by personality differences and competition, reached an adversarial level the first season on one cold November night in Philadelphia when Cosell, possibly suffering from the flu but definitely feeling the effects of a few martinis, was condescendingly critical of Meredith's game analysis and then unceremoniously threw up on Meredith's fancy cowboy boots. The third man in the booth, Keith Jackson, had the responsibility of providing play-by-play description, but his combative partners overshadowed him. And after one season, Jackson returned to his first love of college football, and he will be the voice of college football into the 21st century. And he was replaced by former New York Giants player, star halfback Frank Gifford. This trio made Monday nights an exciting time. And there's Dandy Don, Jeff and Hazel's baby boy, Howard Cosell dominating the microphone as usual, and the Giffer, Frank Gifford, Hall of Fame Giants running back and long-time presence on Monday Night Football. And that's from Bettman Corbis Archive. Then they drew high ratings by enticing millions of viewers to the show, even if they cared little for football. Both Cosell and Meredith had left Monday Night Football by the mid-1980s, and other announcers came and went over the years, and try as it might, ABC and ESPN, after it took over the program in 2006, could never replicate the special magic that was generated by the Howard and Dandy Don show. Cosell left Monday Night Football in 1983 after he made a comment about Alvin Garrett, calling him a little monkey, and Mr. Garrett was a black African-American player. Meredith finally left in 1984, and Gifford stays on until 1997. All three are gone now, unfortunately. Cosell died at the age of 77 in 1995. Meredith died at 72 in 2010. And Gifford lived a long life, dying at age 84 in 2015. And after he was unceremoniously dumped because of the comment that he made in 1983, Cosell was a bitter man. And this is a famous book that he wrote in the mid-'80s, and it's had other editions that came out. This one is from a paperback edition available on Amazon from 1995, where he says that he never played the game. He learned his craft, and he condescendingly calls what had happened to sports broadcasting the jockocracy. A very famous book and highly recommended, ladies and gentlemen.